Hello, welcome back to another episode of Halftime TV. Naranda Brown here, your host, and today we'll be changing the tone somewhat. Happy Sunday, by the way. I hope everyone is enjoying their Sunday afternoon. I hope the Sunday dinners are fully prepared. And for those who don't have any Sunday dinner, you're almost welcome. You're always welcome. Sorry, to join us here at Halftime TV. We always have Sunday dinner. Maybe not food, but food for thought. All right, before I go any further, let me say thank you to my sponsors, Quick Link Shipping, RS Sports Store, and CSA Shop. And as always, a link to each of their profiles is located in the description. All right, Quick Link Shipping, anything you need shipped into the country whatsoever, they have you covered. RS Sports Store, all your sporting clothing and apparel, check out RS Sports Store on Instagram. Now, yesterday news broke that reggae boy Joshawn Anglin was freed of rape charges. Now, if we remember correctly, last year, I think it was September, news broke, breaking news. It was a big scene, ESPN, Miami-Dade, you name it, all the big newspapers and publications, they had the headline, Joshawn Anglin, Miami FC player charged for rape, right? Big headlines, and we know that bad news sells. We know that folks are more interested in the negative news rather than the positive news, because I saw the article yesterday that he was freed of charges, and going back today and looking through to find something similar to that article elsewhere, it was almost impossible. And I think it was a Jamaica Gleaner who published it yesterday, indicating that he was freed of the charges and he was back in Jamaica with Harbour View, trying to kickstart his career. Now, what this says is, once it is negative and it smears your career, the publications will run with it. And that's how the media is. And we've grown to understand it. We've grown to accept it for what it is, right? Propaganda, negativity, all of that stuff, it sells better than the good news. Now, my question is, what does this mean for Joshawn Anglin's career going forward, right? Throughout 2019-2020 season, 2019-2020 season, he made 25 appearances for Harbour View, got on the score sheet a couple of times as well. He got the big move. Most of the youngsters in Jamaica, they're playing schoolboy football, they're playing our Red Stripe Premier League. They're hoping to get that big move that gets them into the MLS or the USL, or to get them abroad for that matter. They just want to make it outside of Jamaica when it comes down to football. Joshawn Anglin, he got that opportunity. He made the big move. He ended up in Miami FC, and 15 appearances later, he ended up with a case. All right, so he ended up with a case. I'll read what exactly transpired, and then we can discuss it a little bit further. But it's one of those things that's both heart-wrenching and it's just disappointing, because to see such a promising talent go to waste. We know where this is going to head, We know where this is going to head. And the title of this one is the Jamaican Brian Banks. And if you know the Brian Banks story, you'll know where I'm coming from. But for those who don't know the Brian Banks story, Brian Banks was an All-American football player, high school football player, as a matter of fact. He was a linebacker. He was playing for Polytechnic, almost sure to make it into the NFL, and he was charged with rape. He accepted a plea deal. I think the young lady who accused him reached out to him a number of years after. I think he spent 6 years in prison, and then he had 5 years probation. Remember, this young man was, I think, 16, 17 when this happened. So right there, that's 11 years of his life through the door, right? He ultimately broke the case because, as he said, he was not guilty. They did some investigations afterwards, found out that what the young lady had said was not true. The school recouped some money from the young lady's family as well, because they even ended up suing the school for what transpired, including Brian Banks. So again, it's one of those things, and as soon as I saw the article, it drew instant comparisons in my mind, because with Brian Banks, promising young NFL or footballers, the Americans will call it, promising young footballer, almost guaranteed to make it big in the NFL. And then this roadblock, this bump in the road, some may say, of his career basically derailed it completely. He ended up in prison. His mental state was on and off. He came from prison throughout his probation term, trying to get a job, trying to integrate back into society. And it was so difficult for him because of the reputation that the reputation came before him, for lack of a better term. And I think it was Bill Gates who said it takes 20 years to make a good reputation, 5 minutes to ruin it. And I totally agree with that, because I just can't see Joshua Anglin mending that reputation. Once you're just going to say he was the reggae boy who was accused of rape, or he's the reggae boy who was accused of rape. And when big teams, should they come should they try drafting him or scouting him again, that will always be the shadow over his head. So how does he correct this? How do they avoid this? An apology, maybe suing the young lady, I don't know. I'm not sure what the agreement was. Probably it was a case where it was settled outside of court. I don't know, right? I'm not privy to that set of information. But what I can assure you is this reputation or this cloud of doubt that he was involved in a sexual assault case, it will be with him forever. What can we take from this? What lessons can we take from Joshua Anglin's mistake, for lack of a better term? Was it a mistake in the first place? The story, let me see if I can pull up the story here so I can read the story, because it's one of those things where you read it and you are as confused as the next person, right? Joshua Anglin, 20 years old, and this is from CBS Miami, right? Miami FC soccer player appeared in bond court Wednesday morning after being accused of sexually battering a woman the day before. Joshua Anglin, 20, a Jamaican national who is midfielder for Miami FC, is accused of forcing himself on a woman in an apartment in the 11,000 block of Southwest 10th Street. The arrest report says Anglin met the woman at the location, removed his pants and his boxers in front of the victim, and requested sex from her. Police said the victim refused, but that Anglin pinned her to the ground and continued, only to stop when someone walked in the room and found the victim crying, and then proceeded to call the police. The victim says she had never met Anglin before the incident. She was able to identify him to police as his attacker. Anglin was read his rights, arrested, and transported to TGK without incident. Bond for Anglin was set at $10,000. Now, this is just the story alone sounds like something from the movies, right? He met the young lady, removed his pants and his boxers. The young lady had never met him before, and then he proceeded to do what he wished, right? He would basically not stop until someone walked in the room and broke up the actual ordeal. So what do we think of now when we hear of Joshua Anglin? Will he be playing in the Red Stripe Premier League forever? Will he even get the opportunity to be scouted by international clubs or foreign clubs? I think it's a very tough one, and as was the case with Brian Banks, most of the action basically will need to come from the female side, right? And as I said, I'm not sure if there was a settlement outside of court, because if there was, then one could understand, right? One could understand why everything transpired the way they did. Miami FC cut ties with him. He's back in the RSPL plying his trade. It's fully understandable. Maybe Miami FC, they were privy to the information as well, and they came to an agreement with Anglin that here's what's going to happen. You're going to go back to go back to Harborview or go back to Jamaica. The young lady won't be pressing the charges because of a handsome settlement outside of court. That could be the case. But again, as I said, I am not privy to that information, but it just draws so many similarities to the Brian Banks case. And I think if you haven't seen the Brian Banks story as yet, You can check it out on Netflix. It's there. Very, very interesting watch. It's paining. It's painful at times, and even sometimes I think about it now. It pains my heart to understand that such a promising youngster, young athlete, lost 10 years, 11 years of his life because of being wrongfully convicted. Is this the same case with Joshua Anglin? Was he wrongfully accused? Was he a victim? I don't know. And we're waiting to see what comes out, because the news will come out. We will hear what actually happened sooner rather than later. But I think it's sad, and it's one of those things that I implore on young athletes, especially coming out of Jamaica. When you're given the opportunity, please make the best of it. Keep your head screwed on. Keep your head screwed on. And think with this one. Think with this head here. Think with it. Because we get caught up sometimes, and we lose track of our actual goals. We lose track of what our intentions were when we set out in the first place. Is that the case with Joshua Anglin? I can't say yay or nay. But for those coming up, just to ensure that you don't fall in a similar trap, or you don't fall victim as well. Not saying Joshua Anglin was a victim, but I'm trying my best to ensure you, the young football players in Jamaica, don't fall victim to similar instances, right? Brian Banks lost 11 years of his life. Joshua Anglin, we're yet to see how much he'll lose of his. Maybe he won't even get the opportunity again to maximize his potential. Maybe he won't get the opportunity to achieve the goals that he had set out initially because of this incident. This incident that will stick with him forever. This incident that will never go. It will always be that black cloud over his head. He'll always be the reggae boy player who was accused of rape. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, the news articles, there are very few of them that actually came out and said he was freed of charges. If you should scroll through the internet now, you'd have to dig thoroughly to find an article lamenting what transpired, that he was freed of charges, etc., etc. Very few. All right, and that says a lot. Folks aren't as excited to report on good news as they are to report on bad news. And him being freed of charges, that is in fact good for those who support the Reggae Boys, but we don't know the backstory. And again, we don't support violence against women. We don't support rape or any form of sexual abuse in any form. But Joshua Anglin, if he was dealt a bad hand, I think more should be done to clear his name, because as things stand now, his reputation is still smeared, and far, far more will need to be done to ensure that his career goes back on track. Because as things stand now, his career was on the up, the trajectory was going up. 19 years old, came in the RSPL, everything was going fine. It was so rosy. 25 appearances for Harborview, 2 goals in there, made the move to Miami FC. 15 appearances, registered an assist as well in those 15 appearances. And then came this little incident. And we may say it's a little incident. Who knows? A few minutes of misjudgment or miscalculation, and he is in the grasp of the law. And for those who live in the United States, or those who travel to foreign countries, once you're in the grasp of the law, it's a totally different story, and it's almost as if you can't break free. Joshua Anglin, I wish you the best in your future endeavors. I hope your fortune changes. I hope you can get your career back on track. And for the youngsters who are applying their trade in Jamaica and hoping to make it big, hoping to make it to bigger leagues abroad, I hope you learn from Joshua's mistake. I hope you use this as a learning experience, a learning exercise. They love to say, fools learn from their mistakes 3-4 times having made that mistakes, but smart people learn from others' mistakes. I hope you guys try your best and learn from this mistake made by Joshua, and I hope in the future Joshua will be able to bounce back from this. The Jamaican Brian Banks story, we saw how Brian had to suffer. We hope Joshua doesn't go through a similar ordeal. Thanks again for tuning into this another episode of Halftime TV. Remember, like, share, subscribe, and if you have any comments or feedback, please leave it in the comment section. Noranda Brown here saying, until next time, and enjoy what's left of your weekend. Bye-bye.